We're on Pesachim Perek Chet, Mishnah Hey, fifth Mishnah in the 8th chapter of Masechet Pesachim. So we're going to talk about the halachot of Zav, of Ziva, and what are the ramifications? Meaning, when a person is tamei now, can I shech the Korban Pesach for him, assuming that he's going to be tahor tonight? So the general rule is, if a person is tamei with different kinds of tuma, let's say a person it becomes tamei, and he has to go to the mikvah, tamei tumat rishon, and he has to go to the mikvah. But if he goes to the mikvah, that's called Herav Shemesh, and he's tamei, and then he'd be tahor tonight. So if it's the 14th day of Nisan, for that kind of tumah, for Rishon the tumah, where he just has to go to the mikvah. So then we will shecht, if he goes to the mikvah before they bring the Korban Pesach, we will include him in the Korban Pesach, even though he can't touch it now, because when the night comes, it becomes tahor, then he can eat it. That's the general rule. What is the rule about a zav? So in order to understand that, you have to ask yourself, what in the world is a zav? So there's a zav. There's two types of ziva. There's a little bit of a long introduction, but you kind of need to know this to understand it. Okay? Ish ki zav mibsaro zovo. It's some kind of emission that comes out of a person's where he urinates. I don't know what the technical term is. Okay, so that's zav. I don't exactly know what it is, but it's an emission. Similar. We'll call it similar to a urinary tract infection. It's like a pus of some kind. Okay, so if a person has this ziva, has this emission, he's tameh. Now the halacha is as follows. I made you a whole long chart because you sort of need this in order to understand. It's a little bit confusing. Okay, there's a difference between men and women. I know this whole introduction is from the Kahati, so I thank the Kahati for bringing me this introduction. If a person is a zav, a male, so if he saw one time or one day, meaning if he saw a couple times during one day, if he's a male. Tovel b'mikvah, he goes to the mikvah, v'tamei ad erev, and he's tamei into the erev, so he's a regular tamei, he goes to the mikvah, and he's fine. And at night, mutar le'echol kachim, he can eat kachim. If he saw it 2 days or two days or twice, then sofer shiv'a yamim, he has to count 7 days. So just for example, I made a little chart. I have to make this a little smaller so it fits. Okay, so I made you a little calendar. This calendar is for the women, but if he sees on the first day, then he counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and on the 7th day he goes to the mikvah, and that night he can eat kachim. That's sofer shivat yamim, goes to the mikvah, and then at night, and the next day he can eat kachim. But if he sees 3 days or 3 times in a row, a male, a zav, then he counts 7 days. He goes to the mikvah on the 7th night, but then on the 8th day, on the Yom HaShemini, he has to bring mevi korbanot kapara, has to bring korbanot. Let's go back to the psukim. Torah says, v'chitar hazav bizovo, and when he becomes tahor, v'safar shivat yamim, he has to count 7 days, v'rachatz v'saro b'mayim chayim, he goes to the mikvah, u'bayom hashmini yikach lo shtei torim u'shnei b'nei yonah, he has to bring on the 8th day, he has to bring the korbanot kapara. Even though he went to the mikvah on the 7th day, and he's tamei, nonetheless he's called mechusar kapara. He's still called adayin, what's called mechusar kapara. He's missing kapara. He's missing kapara until he brings the korbanot kapara, and then he can eat kachim. And this obviously we're going to see as ramifications. Once we have this whole introduction, the Mishnah will be clear. But this has ramifications for Korban Pesach. Because what happens if a zav wants to be part of the Korban Pesach? The Mishnah, after this whole introduction, the Mishnah is pretty clear. That's all for a male. What about for a woman? For a woman, the halachot are absolutely and totally different. Okay? This is all derived. We'll learn it in other Mishnayot. This is not for our discussion today. I'm just going to explain to you what it is. For women's the counting of ziva, it's not an emission. It's not a urinal admission. It's dam. It's blood. If she sees vaginal bleeding, but the vaginal bleeding all depends upon, according to the Oraita halacha, when in her cycle she sees it. According to the halacha that's explained in the Rambam. Now I just want to point out. This is a huge machlokah. When you learn Hilchot Nida, you first learn this discussion of Dam Nida and Dam Ziva. Okay? But we're discussing Dam Ziva according to the basic interpretation, the basic explanation. So women, according to the Torah, they're right to have an 18-day cycle. Okay? Once a woman sees her original cycle, then she counts this 18-day cycle basically for the rest of her life. The first 7 days, anytime she sees blood in those 7 days, she's a Nida. Mida Oraita, according to the Torah law, after the 7 days are over, she can go to the mikvah that night. She can go to the mikvah and she's tahura. After the 7 days are over, though, then she starts counting again 11 days. Any time during the 11 days, which is green here, If she sees blood, that's called dam ziva. It's not dam nida, it's dam ziva. What's the halacha? So it depends. If she saw 1 day or 2 days, then it's called shomeret yom keneged yom. So if she saw, let's say, on the 3rd day, on this day, she then saw, she then saw dam on the 3rd day. So she counts, she shomeret 1 day keneged that day, and then at night she goes to the mikvah, and then the next day, so this is the 2nd day, right? That's the 2nd day, and then the next day she can eat kachim. That's shomeret yom keneged yom. If it's either 1 day or 2 days, that's either way. But if she saw 3 days in a row, let's say she saw during this time 3 days in a row, she saw dam 1, 2, 3, then she's what's called a zavah gemura. Then she's a zavah, and then the rules of zavah gemura happen. She has to count 7 days. She goes to the mikvah on the 7th day, on the night of the 7th day, and then she waits till the night. On the 8th day, she brings her korbanot kapara, and then after the 8th day, after she brings her korbanot, then she can eat kachim. Okay, so that's basically the rule. And then after the 11 days are over, let's say she didn't see blood during those 7 days, then she starts counting her dam nida again, and the whole cycle begins again. So those are the achot of dam nida, dam ziva for a woman, and zav for a man. With that very long introduction, we're able to now understand our Mishnah. Okay, says the Mishnah, Zav shira'ashtei re'iyot. If a Zav saw, a male Zav saw 2 re'iyot, remember what's the halacha of a male who sees 2 re'iyot? He goes to the mikvah. Shochatin ala b'shvi'i. So if the 2nd day of his is the 7th day, you can shecht the Korban Pesach for him. Why? Because if he goes to the mikvah, Bartanura says, Af al pi shelo ha'eriv shimsho, he goes to the mikvah, hu tishtava b'shat hashchita. He went to the mikvah before the time of shchita. At night, he can eat. Okay? So, therefore, if the 2nd day, just look back at our calendar for a second. So imagine for a man, right? So, this Wednesday is the 14th day of Pesach. So he saw 2 re'iyot, he saw 1, 2, or even 1, 2 on that day. I don't think it's 1 day after. He saw 2 and 3. Then, in the morning, he goes to the mikvah, and you can shech the Korban Pesach, because at night, once night comes, he can eat kachim. He's okay. Ra'a shalosh. But if he saw 3, remember what happens if he saw 3? Back to our chart. If he saw 3, then he has to bring korbanot kapara. He cannot eat kachim until he brings a korbanot kapara. Then the only time, shochatin ala b'shmini shalo. The only time you can include him in the Korban Pesach is if the 14th of Nisan is his 8th day, the day that he's bringing his korbanot. The Gemara says, the Bartanura says, it means only if he gave his korbanot to Beit Din to give for him. He gave them over because he is now sure that his korbanot will be offered. But otherwise, we're afraid that he won't do it. What about a woman? Shomeret yom keneged yom. A woman who saw either 1 day or 2 days. So we saw this term, shomeret yom keneged yom. Let's go back and review. Go back to our chart. The woman she saw 1 day or 2 days. That's this term, shomeret yom keneged yom. Okay, she has to wait 1 more day. Then shochatin aleh b'sheni shela. Right? She saw 1 day. So remember we saw that if she saw during her ziva period, then she has to wait till the next day. That's shomeret yom. She goes to the mikvah, and that night. So if this day, for example, is the 14th of Nisan, then you can shecht for her. Shochatin aleh b'sheni shela. Ra'ata shenei yamim. Again, we saw if she saw dam ziva 2 days in a row, she's still shomeret yom keneged yom, and therefore shochatin aleh b'shlishi. Similar, the exact same rule. On the 3rd day, you can shecht for her. You can shecht the Korban Pesach. But if she's zavah gemura, remember she has to count the whole 7 days, the whole Shiva Nikiyim, and then bring on the 8th day. Then shochatin aleh b'shmini, similar to the zav gamur. Then you can shecht if the 8th day where she brings her korbanot of zavah gedolah is the 14th of Nisan. Then you can include her in your Korban Pesach. All right, it's a very long Mishnah. I hope I explained it in a way that's clear. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to email me at rspolter@gmail.com. We'll dedicate our learning to the memory of my father, Rav Simcha ben Yitzchak Kalman. Have a good day.